The Galactic Empire had ruled the stars for so long that even the thought of surprise felt impossible. For thousands of years, its fleets had sailed across the void, conquering and absorbing smaller civilizations. Every known species had either joined the Empire willingly or been forced into its order. To the admirals and senators of the Empire, the galaxy was already mapped, already known, already theirs, and then, one quiet cycle, something changed. At the outer rim of Imperial space, near the forgotten star cluster called Daymar Reach, a patrol group of 3 sleek Imperial cruisers was conducting routine scans. The commanders expected nothing unusual, only faint signals of dying suns and the silent whisper of asteroid fields. But in the middle of their scans, one of the sensor operators sat up sharply. "Commander," she said, her voice unsteady, "there is something out there, a ship. But its signature does not match any Imperial design." The patrol leader, Captain Varenkal, frowned. He was a tall man with the calm confidence of someone who had never known defeat. "Probably a smuggler," he said, waving it off. "Log it and continue the scan." But the operator did not relax. "Sir, the energy readings, they are strange." Varen walked to the display. The holographic projection of the unknown vessel rotated slowly above the table. At first glance, it looked unimpressive. Boxy, angular, and covered with plating that seemed thick and unpolished. Compared to the Empire's elegant cruisers, which gleamed like blades of silver, the vessel looked primitive, almost like a relic from centuries ago. Yet the readings told a different story. The ship was massive, larger than any dreadnought the Empire had ever built. Its power core pulsed with energy levels that should have been impossible for a vessel of its size. Varen's brow furrowed. Impossible. This must be an error. But the longer they scanned, the clearer it became. This was no error. The ship was real, and it was moving. The unknown vessel suddenly shifted, changing position with a burst of acceleration. The entire crew stared as the readings spiked. The ship had gone from stillness to impossible speed in less than a second. Imperial ships could not move like that. Their engines, though advanced, required delicate balancing and careful energy transfer. But this unknown craft had just broken every law of Imperial engineering. The sensor operator's voice trembled. "Captain, is that even possible?" For the first time in years, Varenkal felt a ripple of unease. The news traveled quickly. By the time the patrol cruisers sent their report back to the Central Command, the High Admiralty of the Galactic Empire was already in an uproar. Generals, admirals, and senators crowded into the Imperial Hall, their voices rising in disbelief. "Show us the footage again," demanded Admiral Loran, slamming his fist on the table. The holographic projection replayed. It showed the strange warship, dark against the stars, its outlines sharp and heavy. The Imperial cruisers fired scanning beams at it, but the ship responded with sudden, impossible motion, darting away with terrifying speed. "This cannot be," said Senator Aerith. His face was pale. "No species we know of builds ships like this. The records list nothing of this design." "Then perhaps it is a rogue Imperial experiment," someone suggested. But the archivists shook their heads. There is no record of such a project. Not in any era. And the construction style, it does not match ours at all. The room fell into silence until one of the oldest historians spoke up, his voice quiet but firm. "There is one possibility, one species long forgotten, a primitive people, believed to be incapable of real space travel. Their name was humanity." The words seemed to echo through the hall. Humanity. Most of the senators scoffed. Humans, a myth, a backwater species. They had barely touched the stars in their time. The records described them as fragile, unrefined, obsessed with conflict. Surely they could not create this, but the evidence remained. The ship existed. Its design, though crude in appearance, hinted at something terrifying. Meanwhile, on the far edge of space, the patrol cruisers continued to shadow the unknown vessel. They dared not engage it directly, but they kept their distance, transmitting every reading back to the Empire. On the bridge of the lead cruiser, tension was thick. "Captain, the vessel is slowing," the operator reported. It's turning toward us." Varenkal stood frozen, his eyes fixed on the massive warship as it rotated. Its thick armor glinted faintly in the starlight. No lights flickered on its hull. No decorative markings showed its allegiance. It was silent, dark, and terrifying. Then, without warning, the unknown vessel sent a signal. The communications officer jumped. "We are receiving a transmission, Captain." "It is audio only." "The language." "It is old, very old, but our translators can interpret it." The bridge fell silent as the message played. The voice was calm, steady, and unmistakably human. "To the vessels of the Galactic Empire," the voice said, "we see you. We know you watch us. Do not follow." A chill swept through the crew. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving only static behind. The officers looked to their captain. For the first time in his career, Varen'Kal had no clear orders. The Empire always commanded strength, always demanded control. But here, faced with this impossible ship, even he felt hesitation. The unknown warship did not fire. It did not threaten. It merely continued on its path, silent and unstoppable, leaving the Imperial patrols trailing behind. But the damage was done. Across the Empire, fear began to spread. Rumors whispered in marketplaces and military barracks alike. People asked the same question again and again. What if the humans have returned? Back in the Imperial Hall, the debate grew fierce. "We must send a fleet," said Admiral Loran. "If this ship belongs to humans, then we must destroy it before it gathers strength." "Destroy it?" Another senator scoffed. "Did you not see what it did? Our cruisers could not even keep pace with it. What chance would a fleet have?" "Then what do you suggest?" Loran demanded. "That we sit and do nothing while a lost species builds weapons greater than ours?" Silence fell again. No one wanted to admit the truth, but everyone felt it. The Empire was afraid. Out in the stars, the human warship continued its silent journey. No one knew its destination. No one knew its purpose, but one thing was certain. The Galactic Empire, which had thought itself untouchable, had just been reminded of something it had long forgotten. There were other powers in the galaxy, and one of them was human. The news of the strange warship spread through the Galactic Empire like a storm. Reports traveled faster than light, whispered between admirals, merchants, and even civilians in the great cities of the core worlds. For the first time in centuries, the Empire felt something it had nearly forgotten: doubt. In the capital, the High Admiralty met again inside the grand chamber of the Imperial Hall. The room was a circle of shining metal and crystal, filled with glowing stars projected above the council table. Senators sat in their curved seats while admirals stood tall in their dark uniforms. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the same display: the recordings of the unknown warship. The hologram showed its thick armored hull, its strange engine flares, and its sudden bursts of speed that no Imperial ship could match. Again and again the footage played, and again the same question was whispered. What is it? Who built this thing? Admiral Loran spoke first, his voice hard. We cannot ignore this. That vessel moved like nothing we have ever seen. If it belongs to a rising enemy, we are already in danger. Senator Aerith shook his head. We must be cautious. We do not know its numbers. What if it is only one ship? What if it is alone? Alone? Admiral Loran snapped. Do you think anyone builds such a craft in isolation? No, Senator. If there is one, there are more. Another senator leaned forward. And if it truly is inhuman? The word fell heavily into the air. Even after the first meeting, many still refused to believe it. Humans were old history, written about only in ancient records. The Empire had considered them weak, violent, and self-destructive. It was said that their homeworld, a blue planet called Earth, had been abandoned long ago. By all logic, they should not exist in this era. Yet the design of the vessel, though alien to Imperial eyes, bore the mark of something unmistakable: function over form. Thick armor instead of sleek curves, engines built for raw power instead of grace. It was ugly, crude, but terrifyingly effective. Admiral Selene, one of the youngest members of the council, spoke quietly. If this is human work, then perhaps we have underestimated them. Perhaps they did not vanish. Perhaps they endured. Her words sent murmurs across the chamber. The decision was made quickly. The Empire would not send a full battle fleet. It would send a reconnaissance force larger than the patrol group but small enough to test the waters. 5 cruisers, supported by 2 carriers, were ordered to intercept the vessel and gather all possible data. The admirals believed it would be enough. After all, no single ship, no matter how advanced, could resist the might of an Imperial task force. Days later, in the cold void near the Daymar Reach, the reconnaissance fleet arrived. Their ships were elegant and bright, their engines glowing with imperial blue light. They spread out in formation, their long-range scanners reaching deep into the void. Soon they found it. The human warship was there, waiting in the darkness. It did not run. It did not hide. It simply turned slowly, as though acknowledging their arrival. On the bridge of the flagship, Commodore Reth stared at the display. "By the stars," he whispered. "Look at it," the warship dwarfed his fleet. Its surface was rough and scarred, yet every sensor reading screamed of impossible strength. The alloy of its armor resisted scans. The energy within it pulsed like a beating heart. The science officer spoke. "Sir, the material, I do not recognize it. It is denser than anything in our catalog. And the core, it is outputting more energy than our dreadnoughts." Reth narrowed his eyes. "It doesn't matter. One ship cannot stand against 7. Signal them." A transmission was sent. The fleet demanded identification, demanded that the vessel submit to Imperial authority. For a long moment there was only silence. Then, just like before, a voice answered. It was human. "We warned you not to follow," the voice said, calm, steady, unshaken. "This is your only chance. Turn back." Reth's jaw tightened. "Arrogant primitives," he muttered. "They think they can command the Empire. Prepare a warning shot." Moments later, an Imperial cruiser fired a beam of golden energy across the void. It struck the side of the human warship and flared in a burst of light. The Imperial officers leaned forward, expecting to see damage. But when the light faded, the human ship was still there, unharmed. Gasps filled the bridge. "Impossible," the science officer whispered. "That beam could cut through a fortress wall." Before anyone could recover, the warship moved. No slow turning, no measured speed. It leapt forward with such acceleration that the fleet's tracking systems struggled to keep up. And then it struck back, not with energy beams, not with plasma. Instead, the warship fired a slug of metal, a kinetic round launched at near relativistic speed. The projectile was small, but when it hit the Imperial cruiser that had fired first, the result was catastrophic. The cruiser vanished in a white flash, torn apart instantly. There was no wreckage, no debris, only dust. The Imperial fleet froze in disbelief. "One strike, one shot. One ship gone. Commodore, orders?" cried the helmsman. Reth's heart pounded. He had expected resistance, yes, but not this. Never this. "All ships defensive formation. Do not engage further." But the human warship did not attack again. It simply drifted back as if the destruction of one cruiser had been enough of a lesson. Its voice came once more. "You see? We are not weak. Leave us." The Imperial fleet returned home in shame. Their mission had been simple: investigate, intimidate, and if necessary, destroy. Instead, they had lost a cruiser and gained nothing but fear. When the report reached the capital, the Empire erupted. Senators argued, admirals shouted, and citizens whispered in the streets. For the first time in living memory, the Empire had met an opponent it did not understand and could not defeat easily. Admiral Loran raged in the council hall. "Do you see now? This is no myth. The humans have returned and they bring weapons we cannot match. We must prepare for war before it is too late." Senator Aerith shook his head. "War against what? One ship? Perhaps it is all they have. Perhaps they show power only to hide weakness." Admiral Celine, who had been silent, finally spoke. "You saw the same footage we all saw. Their weapons are not like ours. Their technology is not like ours. They built something different, something dangerous, and they are not afraid to use it." The council fell into argument once more. But in the shadows of the chamber, unease grew. Far across the stars, the human warship continued on its silent path. No one knew where it was going. No one knew if more like it existed. But the Empire could no longer ignore the truth. Humans were out there, alive, strong, and the Empire had just discovered that its greatest fleets might not be enough. Back in his private quarters, Emperor Kael'Varen sat in silence, watching the recordings again and again. His empire was built on the belief that it was unchallenged, eternal. But now a single vessel had shaken that belief. His advisors waited nervously behind him. Finally, the Emperor spoke. "If humans have truly returned," he said, his voice low and thoughtful, "then the galaxy will change. Forever." And with those words, the Empire began its search, not just to understand the warship, but to uncover the truth about humanity itself. The Galactic Empire had faced enemies before. Rebel colonies, raider fleets, even ancient machines left behind by long-dead species. None of them had ever truly threatened the Empire's rule. But the human warship was different. The loss of a cruiser during the reconnaissance mission had shaken the Admiralty. For weeks, debates echoed in the Imperial Hall. Some senators argued that the warship was a lone relic, a weapon without a fleet. Others believed it was only the beginning, a warning of something far greater. At last, the decision was made. The Empire would send a fleet, not to destroy the human ship immediately, but to test it. They wanted proof. They wanted to see the limits of its power. The Gathering Storm, the fleet chosen for this task, was the 9th Imperial Battle Group. 10 cruisers, 4 carriers, and 1 dreadnought. It was enough to subdue a rebellious star system. To the Empire, it was more than enough to deal with a single vessel, no matter how strange. The fleet gathered at the Daymar Reach, where the human warship had last been sighted. The flagship, the dreadnought Radiant Spear, gleamed like a silver blade against the stars. Its commander, Admiral Duran Tyrek, stood tall on the bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. "Remember," he told his officers, "this is a test. We are not here to destroy it at once. We are here to measure it, to learn." The officers nodded, but unease lingered in their eyes. They had all seen the recordings of the destroyed cruiser. They knew the risk. The first contact, the human warship was waiting. It hung in the void, massive and silent, its hull dark and unpolished. Against the sleek Imperial fleet, it looked almost primitive, like a relic of a forgotten age. But the sensors told a different story. Power readings beyond belief, armor too dense to scan. On the bridge of the Radiant Spear, Admiral Tyrek watched carefully. "Open a channel," he ordered. The transmission was sent. "Unidentified vessel. This is Admiral Tyrek of the Galactic Empire. You are ordered to power down your engines and submit to inspection. Refusal will be considered hostility." For a long moment there was no reply. Then once again a human voice filled the air. "You do not listen. We warned you before. Turn back. This is your last chance." The words were calm, steady, almost patient. But to the officers of the Empire they sounded like a challenge. Admiral Tyrek's jaw tightened. "They think they can frighten us. Prepare weapons. Fire a controlled volley." The test begins. The Imperial fleet unleashed a wave of fire. Beams of golden energy crossed the void, striking the human warship's hull. Explosions of light flared across its surface, but when the light faded, the ship remained. Its armor had absorbed the blows. Gasps filled the Imperial bridge. "No damage," reported the science officer. "Not even surface burns." Tyrek clenched his fists. "Increase power. All ships fire again." Another storm of fire erupted, stronger this time. The human warship drifted slightly, but its hull still held. The Imperial fleet had thrown enough power to reduce a city to ash, and yet the warship endured. Then, at last, the human ship responded. Its engines roared to life, and in a blink, it moved. Not with the steady glide of Imperial ships, but with violent acceleration, darting between the Imperial formation like a predator among prey. "Track it," Tyrek shouted. But the ship was too fast. The Imperial targeting system struggled to keep up. Then came the weapon. The human warship did not fire beams. It did not launch plasma. Instead, it released a single kinetic slug, a piece of metal propelled at near relativistic speed. It struck an Imperial cruiser. The ship vanished in an instant, torn apart by the sheer force of the impact. One heartbeat it was there, the next it was gone. No shields, no armor, nothing in the Empire's arsenal could stop it. Panic in the ranks, the Imperial fleet faltered. Officers shouted, ships broke formation, and panic spread. No one had seen such a weapon before. It was too simple, too brutal, and too effective. On the Radiant Spear, Admiral Tyrek struggled to regain control. "Hold formation," he shouted. "Do not break. This is only one ship. Surround it." But the warship moved again, faster than any of them. Another slug launched, and another cruiser disappeared. Then another. In less than 5 minutes, 3 Imperial ships were gone, reduced to nothing. The dreadnought fired its main cannon, a beam of energy that could crack a planet's crust. The blast lit the stars, striking the human warship directly. When the light cleared, the ship was still there. Its armor glowed faintly, but it remained whole. Silence filled the bridge. The science officer whispered, "Admiral, we cannot defeat it. The lesson, And then, just as suddenly as it had begun, the human warship stopped. It drifted back, engines cooling, weapons silent. It did not finish the fleet. It could have destroyed them all, but it did not. Instead, a final transmission came. You see now, we do not seek war, but we will not be threatened. Leave us. And then, without another word, the human warship jumped to faster than light speed, vanishing from their sensors. The Imperial fleet floated in silence, broken and humiliated. 4 ships lost, the rest shaken. They had not won. They had not even fought evenly. They had been spared. The aftermath: when the fleet returned to the capital, the Empire was thrown into chaos. The recordings were played across the High Admiralty, and the senators argued louder than ever. Impossible, some shouted. One ship cannot do this. But it did, Admiral Selene replied coldly. We saw it. We faced it, and we survived only because it allowed us to. The council was divided. Some called for more fleets, stronger weapons, new strategies. Others whispered of diplomacy, of seeking contact instead of war. But underneath every argument was the same truth. The Empire had just been humbled. Whispers of fear beyond the council halls. Fear spread across the Empire's worlds. Citizens spoke in hushed tones about the return of humans. Some mocked the idea, calling it an old myth, but others believed. They fought differently, whispered a merchant. Not with beauty, but with strength. They endured our weapons, said a soldier. Nothing could harm them. They destroyed us with metal, whispered another. Just metal. And so, the legend of the human warship grew. The Emperor's thoughts in his private chamber. Emperor Kale Varen watched the recordings alone. He had seen fleets win and lose before, but never like this. Never against a single ship. He leaned back in his chair, his mind heavy with thought. Humans, he murmured, once forgotten, now returned. For the first time in centuries, the Emperor felt the weight of uncertainty. His empire was vast, his fleets countless, but now he wondered if all of it was enough. Because somewhere in the stars, a single human warship had shown the galaxy a terrible truth. The Empire was not invincible. The Empire was shaken. For centuries, it had been the strongest force in the galaxy. No fleet had matched its power. No rival had dared to challenge it. But now whispers spread across every world. A single human warship had faced an Imperial fleet and survived. On the trade routes, merchants repeated the story. In the academies, students debated it. Soldiers spoke of it in hushed voices. Everywhere, the same question grew. Who were the humans, and how did they build such a ship? The High Admiralty demanded answers. The senators demanded control. Even Emperor Kale Varen demanded clarity. So the Empire sent another fleet, not to fight, but to parley. For the first time in centuries, the Empire would seek a conversation instead of conquest. The envoy fleet, the fleet chosen for this mission, was smaller than the 9th Battle Group, but stronger in purpose. 2 carriers, 5 cruisers, and 1 diplomatic vessel set course for the Outer Rim. Their orders were clear. Find the human warship, open communication, and demand an explanation. Admiral Selene, the youngest of the Admiralty, was given command. Many thought her too cautious, but others believed her wisdom was needed. Unlike Admiral Tyrek, she did not see humans as mere primitives. She saw them as something different, something to be understood. Remember, she told her officers as the fleet traveled, we are not here to prove our power. We are here to learn theirs. The meeting. The human warship appeared on their sensors 2 days into the mission. It drifted near a dying star, silent as always. Its dark hull absorbed the light, making it look more like a shadow than a machine. Admiral Selene gave the order. Hail them. The transmission was sent. This is Admiral Selene of the Galactic Empire. We request dialogue. We come not to fight, but to speak. For a long moment, there was only silence. Then at last, the familiar human voice returned. You choose words instead of weapons. That is good. Very well, Admiral Selene. You may speak. The bridge fell quiet. For the first time, the Empire was allowed to talk, not just listen. The question Selene spoke with calm care. Your ship is unlike anything we know. It endures our weapons. It moves faster than we can track. And its guns destroy us with ease.
Tell us, how is this possible?
Who are you? There was silence again, but then the human voice answered. We are humanity. We come from a small world far from here. Long ago, the galaxy believed us weak, fragile, primitive. That was your mistake. We did not vanish. We endured. The officers listened in awe. The human voice continued. While you perfected beauty in your ships, we perfected survival. While you enjoyed peace in your empire, we faced struggle every day. Our history is written in wars, storms, and endless trials. We built machines not for elegance, but for endurance. Not for comfort, but for victory. Admiral Selene leaned forward. So this ship, it is the product of your struggle? Yes, the human said. Every plate of armor is forged from lessons written in hardship. Every engine is built to push beyond limits. Every weapon is made not to threaten, but to end battles quickly. Where others built fleets for control, we built warships for survival. That is the difference between us, the lesson the Empire's officers whispered among themselves. For centuries, the Empire had believed strength came from refinement, from perfection of form. But the humans had chosen another path, the path of necessity. Selene asked, "Why reveal yourselves now? Why return after so long?" The voice paused, then answered, "Because the galaxy grows arrogant. Empires believe themselves eternal. They forget struggle, they forget survival. We return to remind you, strength does not come from pride. It comes from endurance." The words carried across the bridge like a heavy truth. The test of honesty, Admiral Selene was not satisfied with words alone. "If what you say is true, then why did you destroy our ships? Why kill, when you could have only shown your power?" The reply was calm but firm. "Because your empire fired first. We gave warnings. We asked you to turn back. You ignored us. We did not destroy you for conquest. We destroyed to teach. We spared more than we struck. Does that not show our intent?" The bridge grew silent. The officers remembered the recordings. It was true. The human warship had only fired a few times, and each time it could have destroyed more, but did not. It had shown restraint, not hunger for war. A glimpse inside, then came something no one expected. The human warship sent a data stream. At first, the Imperial systems resisted, but then the code unfolded into images. The officers saw humans, men and women in simple uniforms, walking the corridors of the warship. They saw machines built for function, not beauty. They saw engines burning brighter than suns, weapons made of simple mass and speed, armor layered like stone walls, and finally, they saw Earth, a blue world full of oceans and storms, a planet where survival had never been easy. "This is who we are," the human said. "We are not ghosts. We are not myths. We are survivors, and survivors always return." The Empire reacts. Admiral Selene ended the transmission. Her fleet remained in silence, the crew struggling to process what they had seen. Back in the capital, when the images were shown to the High Admiralty, chaos erupted again. Some senators refused to believe them, calling them tricks. Others trembled, realizing that humanity was real, and stronger than they had ever imagined. Admiral Loran argued for immediate war. "If they have one ship, they may have many. We must strike before they rise further." But Selene stood against him. "No, you do not understand. They do not seek war. They seek respect. If we fight them now, we will lose. We must learn from them, or we will fall to them." The Emperor listened in silence, his eyes fixed on the images of Earth. Across the stars, meanwhile, in distant corners of the galaxy, other species listened too. Some cheered quietly, hoping humans might weaken the Empire. Others grew fearful, wondering if humans would turn against them as well. But one thought spread everywhere. If this is what one human warship can do, what happens when there are more? The truth revealed. For the first time in its long history, the Empire understood that it was not the center of the galaxy. Humanity had returned not as a weak relic, but as a power forged in hardship. The revelation shook the galaxy, and as whispers turned into stories and stories into legends, one truth could no longer be denied. The humans had endured, and endurance was the greatest strength of all. The revelation of humanity spread across the galaxy like fire. For centuries, humans had been forgotten, written down in dusty records as a minor species that would never rise. But now the truth was undeniable. A single human warship had faced the Empire's fleets, survived their strongest weapons, and returned their fire with terrifying strength. Across Imperial space, fear and wonder mixed together. On the great city worlds, citizens gathered in markets and squares to whisper about the recordings. In distant colonies, soldiers replayed the images of the human ship again and again. And in the High Admiralty itself, Senators and admirals argued without end. The question was no longer if humans had returned. The question was what would they do now? The divided council inside the Imperial Hall, the council chamber shook with raised voices. Senators sat in their curved seats, admirals stood at attention, and holograms of stars rotated above them. At the center of the storm stood Admiral Selene, who had spoken with the humans directly. "They do not seek war," she said firmly. "They seek respect. They warned us. They held back. If they had wanted destruction, our fleets would already be gone." But Admiral Loran slammed his fist against the table. "You call that restraint? 4 ships lost. A fleet humiliated. They show power because they mean to rule. If we bow to them now, the empire ends." Murmurs spread across the chamber. Some senators nodded in agreement with Loran, while others leaned toward Selene's calmer words. The empire had never been so divided. Then Senator Aerith rose. His voice, though tired, carried across the hall. "We must not make the mistake of arrogance again. For centuries we believed no one could match us. Now we see we were wrong. The humans remind us that strength comes from survival, not from pride. If we strike without thought, we may destroy ourselves." The chamber fell quiet. Even Loran did not reply immediately. The Emperor's choice in the end, the decision was left to Emperor Kael Veyran. The tall, silver-haired ruler had watched every recording, read every report, and heard every argument. For nights he remained awake, walking the gardens of the Imperial Palace, thinking of the weight of his empire. Finally, he gathered his advisors. His voice was calm but heavy with meaning. "The humans are not our enemies," he said, "but neither are they our subjects. They are something new, something old returned to us. We must treat them carefully. If we fight, we risk destruction. If we learn, we may endure." His words surprised many, but they carried the weight of truth. The Emperor was not choosing war. He was choosing patience. Across the Empire, the Emperor's decision did not silence debate, but it gave direction. Orders spread across the military. No attacks on the human warship, no attempts at forced capture. Patrols were warned to avoid engagement. Instead, the Empire began to prepare in other ways, building new weapons, studying new defenses, and most importantly, searching the old archives for every record of humanity. Historians uncovered forgotten details. They spoke of Earth, a planet of storms and oceans. They spoke of human wars fought with fire and steel. They spoke of explorers who reached for the stars despite endless obstacles. The more they read, the more the Empire understood. Humanity was not powerful because of elegance or perfection. Humanity was powerful because it refused to fall. The other civilizations, news of humanity did not stay inside the Empire. Other species heard the stories too. On the trade networks, rumors flew faster than ships. Some alien leaders rejoiced, hoping humans might weaken the Empire's iron grip on the galaxy. Others trembled, fearing that if humans could crush the Empire's fleets, what chance would smaller nations have? In hidden councils across the stars, secret alliances began to form. Some sought to reach out to humans in friendship. Others began to plan defenses in case the legends were true, that humans would one day expand again, carrying their unstoppable warships with them. The warship's journey, and what of the warship itself? It did not vanish. It continued its slow path across the galaxy, appearing here and there, always silent, always watching. Sometimes it drifted near Imperial patrols, never firing, only observing. Other times it passed near neutral space, where merchants caught glimpses of its massive shadow. To many it became a symbol, a ghost of power, a reminder that the galaxy was no longer as safe or simple as before. Some began to call it the Survivor. Others called it the Hammer of Earth. To the Empire it was simply the human warship. Admiral Selene's reflection. Admiral Selene returned to her quarters after yet another council session. The arguments of the Admiralty still rang in her ears, but her mind was elsewhere. She remembered the human voice, steady and calm. Speaking of survival, she remembered the images of Earth, a planet of struggle and storms. She understood something that many in the Empire did not. The humans were not a mystery to be solved with weapons or debates. They were a mirror. They showed what the Empire had forgotten, that strength is not comfort, but endurance. Looking out at the stars, Selene whispered softly, "Perhaps we need them, more than they need us." The galaxy changes weeks turned into months, and the shadow of humanity continued to hang over the galaxy. Trade routes shifted as merchants avoided the warship's known path. Imperial academies changed their lessons, teaching cadets that the Empire was no longer unchallenged. And in quiet conversations, both within and beyond the Empire, leaders admitted something they had never said before. The balance of power has changed. The humans had returned, the final whisper, on the edge of the galaxy. Far from the shining core worlds, the human warship drifted in silence. Inside, its crew spoke little, but their mission was clear. They had shown the galaxy what humanity was. They had reminded the stars that humans endured. One day, perhaps, there would be more ships. One day, perhaps, Earth itself would return to the center of galactic affairs. But for now, one warship was enough. Because the Empire knew the truth. The galaxy knew the truth: humans had survived, and survival was power.